right there. Now, Kenya was supposed to host the 2025 edition of the Africa Motorcross Championships, but Kenya lost that, or rather not lost the bid, but Kenya, because of some difficulties, that went to Zimbabwe. The championships will be held in Harare, but the reason for Kenya failing to host the championship was because the federation said that Kenya has no capacity to host the championship. Earlier on, it was supposed to be held in Mombasa, but the East Africa Motocross Club in Jamhuri, asked why that was why it was given to Mombasa and not, Nairobi, where most of the riders are. I got a chance of speaking to some of the members from the club at Jamhuri, and they said that, at the moment the sport is at a crossroad and they're trying to see if, some things can be sorted out.
It's quite unfortunate, and, as our leadership, I'm the vice chair of the club, we listened to our membership, and our membership was very aligned in terms of having the event in Kenya. Of course, there was still that small challenge where the federation wanted to have this event taken to Mombasa. But then, this being the home of motocross, there was every reason for it to be brought here, and that's why the club came out to challenge the process. In fact, initially there was an arbitrary choice of Mombasa as the host, and then later, of course, a change of mind by the federation. They tried to put in to ask for bins for the people who would have hosted it, and ideally the only people who would have put in a bin is ourselves in Mombasa. And this being the biggest forum and the biggest stakeholder group, it was almost obvious that the event should have been done here. And that didn't augur well with the riders and the parents. And we find ourselves here because the process even was now challenged in the tribunal, whereas the federation, being the big brother, would have called the biggest stakeholder, which is EMSC, to have a roundtable discussion and see why there is a bit of this resistance. Otherwise, it's unfortunate. I don't know how many people will afford to go to Zimbabwe. The government has also been lattered a bit in terms of thinking there is politics in the sport. So we don't know whether they'll be able to come through with sponsorship like they did last year. So we are in that position where we've lost the bid, and the riders, of course, some are very young, they don't know what is happening. And we as parents, we are trying to make them understand that this is a chance that would have been a chance of a lifetime for them. Yeah.
I mean, when you spoke to the federation, what did they say about this bid going to Vipingo, and then ultimately, you went to the SDT, and then, the event was withdrawn and taken to Zimbabwe?
Yeah, I think we have been talking to the federation. These are not people who sit in another country, they sit in Kenya. We have been talking to them, even the normal interactions. But then when we put in the bid we put for the Jamhuri track and an alternative track, which is Naivasha track, just in the event that they felt owning it in Nairobi will not be appropriate for whatever reason, we thought Naivasha would also have been very appropriate. But then when they returned to us and said we were not successful, naturally our parents and the riders said we should ask why we failed. And for every exam you do, even in an exam situation, you are told why you failed. So the leadership wrote to the federation and asked, tell us why we failed, and also give us the documents of the successful bidder, so that we see where is it they took the bid and we lost it. But ideally, they wrote back, which was like a petition. It's an appeal. Their constitution allows you to do an appeal if a decision is made. So they just wrote back, returned our appeal fees, and said we were not successful, and they never gave reasons. So that again angered the parents here. Because you see, when you are working with somebody who needs to be interactive, and they just throw back your documents, then what do? You have to now go to another neutral arbiter, who is the SDT, to listen to you and see who is to be cautioned and who is to be guided in terms of the processes and the sports.
Somebody would want to know, after you saw that, this bid has been taken to Zimbabwe, did you at least try to approach the Ministry of Sports and, probably they try and intervene so that something can be done for the championship to remain in Kenya?
Yeah, actually, to put the matter in perspective, the first challenge at the SDT was not even whether Kenya is going to host or not. The first challenge was on the bid process, which is really a procurement process. And the moment an organization opens itself to a procurement process and they are public, they need to follow the procurement laws, which is the Procurement Act. So that was the challenge. So when we went at the tribunal, the issue was not whether Kenya is hosting or not. Then, of course, when we were there, then the issue of now the federation withdrawing came up. They withdrew, citing challenges in the court processes. And ideally, at that point when we were at the tribunal challenging the procurement process, a letter was done by our advocates on a without prejudice basis to the federation and copying to the ministry, highlighting the issues that were there and saying the stakeholders are these lenders and they need to be consulted. And you see, that is an avenue where in my other life I practice law. That's another avenue where even as a matter is in court, you can have it sorted out without waiting for the court to decide. When we extended that olive branch to the federation, they just wrote back and saying, let's hear what the tribunal will say. The ministry, I know the ministry is very busy. They handle so many things. I think by that time, our letter had not gone through the processes all the way to the people who make decisions. But our letter was received by the CS, by the office of the PS. So ideally, they were not able to action before the event was surrendered.
And when you talk to the parents, what they tell you? How is the mood?
Yeah, the mood, you can feel the parents are not happy. And the annoyance by the people who are supposed to be regulating us is palpable. You can actually feel it. And as a leadership, what we are telling our parents is let the riders continue practicing. We still have a club championship that is ongoing. The federation has been unable to date. This is June. They have been unable to piece. This is actually May, going to June. They have been unable to piece a national championship. They have not had a single national championship. So I think that they also have a challenge because you see, the parents now feel they will not be able to honor fixtures on a national championship of somebody who could not listen to them when such an event was here and they threw it away without consulting even them and the ministry and even going to the tribunal even on a certificate of urgency and saying we are supposed to be ready within 12 weeks. This matter is here in the tribunal. It needs to be resolved. And the tribunal even has power to call in a mediator to quickly resolve. So this is a loss for Kenya, a loss for tourism, a loss for the hotel industry, and a loss to the riders, who some of them are as young as 5 years.
The championships, but now that is not going to happen. As a parent who's invested into this sport, how big of a loss is that?
You're just right. We are the ones who've invested a lot into this sport. As stakeholders and the children who are participating in this sport, it's a big loss. Just now we've lost advantage to Zimbabwe. Had we hosted it in Kenya, particularly in this showground, then imagine the tourism that would have come in, the track development money that would have gone into this track. The thing is, this track is not privately owned. Yes, EMC is privately instituted, but it's a community track. So anybody who wants to ride comes here and rides. Yes, there's a track fee. It's my son's are, yes. But if you go to the way the whole bidding process had been done was questionable. So what EMC, and I'm sure the chairman will be here in a minute, will tell you, we wanted to at least have transparency in the bidding process. Yes, let us be transparent in the manner in which Vipingo was selected, or MMMC in Mombasa was selected, versus us. Well, ultimately, all the riders, literally all the riders that would have participated in MXON are members of this club. Yeah, so all we were asking for is a voice to be heard and a way to explain it. Come around the table and we can discuss the bidding process. But instead, what happened was MFSK unilaterally decided not to host it. They wrote to FIM Africa and they explained it to FIM Africa because of some litigation matters that we are unable to host it, which is absolutely not true. We are ready to host it. We are ready to go ahead with it. But that decision did not take into account the riders of the sport, which is about 50 plus members of this club. Yeah.
If I may ask, were you given reasons why, you could not host, or rather why the bidding was given to Vipingo and after that, the whole championship taken to Zimbabwe?
We were not given specific reasons. To rewind, some time back in December, a calendar was released for the events of 2025. And on the calendar, Vipingo had been selected to run the MXON. Yes. Now, from our perspective, that had not been discussed with anybody. So we asked about it, they pulled it out of the calendar, and they did a bidding process, like I mentioned before. Yes. So no, we were not given a proper reason why we cannot host it here in Jamhuri. They said they made some excuses about the track, about the list, and so on. But all those were things that were being worked out and would have been ready by August. Yeah.
Yes, had we hosted here, I mean, first, it was home ground advantage. Secondly, in terms of expenses, it will have also, saved parents on when it comes to expenses. Your thoughts on that?
That is true. I see the expenses as we would not necessarily be spending that much money moving it around. I think what would be highlighted is the manner in which the bidding was done. Had we hosted it here, we would have had more riders. So advantage Kenya. Yes, you can imagine the economy, the number of tourists that would have come into Nairobi. We've got very many Airbnbs around the place. We would have been happy to host them. There was a fee that would have come in from FIM Africa or FIM International for track development, which would have benefited the track, a community track, not a private track someplace out in Mombasa. Yes. So in terms of cost, yes, there is a cost aspect to consider, but I think what is more important was to have it hosted where the riders come from.
Tulikuwa to host championship hapa, but tumeenda to Zimbabwe. As a coach, how do you feel about that?
I really feel so bad because we had the highest chance of winning it this year, but now the opportunity has not been given to us now. So I really feel so bad. For these young riders, it was something that we were actually looking forward to. Yeah.
Now, as the coach, what do you tell the riders, the young riders?
I don't even know what to tell them normally because you can't also just tell them the opportunity they had is lost. Otherwise, they'll end up even losing interest because they also want to really showcase their talent there to the rest of Africa. But now, when it was here, all of them were going to participate. But now that it's all going to be there, maybe just a few individuals will make it there. So,
when you speak to the parents, what do they tell you on their feelings about this not happening in Kenya?
I know the parents are, to be honest, they're so disappointed. Yeah, they were so disappointed. That's what I can say. They were so disappointed.
Well, it's motocross at a crossroad. Yes, Kenya was supposed to